Right, we are back as mentioned in my previous video, hashtag 271, where we made these crazy 3D kind of resin shells using hairspray. I did mention that I had one more video currently, there's probably going to be more, using hairspray with resin. Now, if you look just there, you'll see this patch. Got you a closer shot. Now this is where this idea came from. Where I've been playing around with hairspray, I noticed that it was leaving this kind of effect on my craft mat. Now, this is absolutely crazy. This is just, I don't know how to explain it. You thought the previous video was good for resin art. Now, watch what happens when I dust this. I'm just going to use a gold nail powder. Watch this. This is absolutely crazy. This is how my brain works. I see something and I think, oh, I wonder. So I just began to brush the powder over the surface of my craft mat. Can you see what's going on? Get you an even better shot. If I just keep rubbing that, you'll see that the powder is sticking to the silicone, but it's not sticking to the hairspray. And fun fact, I didn't realize this. Hairspray actually contains forms of resin. So what it does is it sets, this is what way it holds your hair. It's setting almost like a very, very fine resin. You know, when you try to dust powders onto fully cured resin, it doesn't really want to bond. It's doing exactly the same thing. Now, you're probably sitting there like I was at the time when I discovered this, thinking, oh my God, the possibilities. Yes, this is very similar to the raindrop technique that went viral. I think this has the potential to also go viral. Now, we can control the sizes of these areas and the blobs by spraying more, but I'm going to show you just how it's not as simple as just spraying the hairspray. Well, it is and it isn't. Okay, I'm going to show you on this old dull mold. This is perfect for those molds that you've got that have lost their shine, because also this could mark. You can see there previous sprays that I've done, and I've fully cleaned that off. So use an old mold and just keep using that mold for this technique. Okay, so out comes the hairspray. Again, I'm using this brand. It's a firm hold, so anything quite high on the firm to strong should work. So I'm not gonna just spray my hairspray on the mold. I'm gonna just push down the nozzle, and you'll see I can kind of control the size of the blobs like that, and then we just let that dry. It dries really quick, about 10 minutes. Right, that was actually over the space of about 14 minutes. I just sped that up. Now, you do need to make sure this is fully dry, because if not, what's going to happen is when you're brushing it, it's just going to make a mess. So just give it a tap and just make sure. It looks wet still, but it's perfectly dry. Actually, that bit there could probably take a few more minutes. Don't use any kind of flame to speed this up, because hairspray is highly flammable. So what we can actually do with that is brush whatever kind of colors we want onto the mold and make a coaster, so it will give a really, really cool effect. And you can, this is where it's going to get kind of limitless with colors, powders, flakes, backing colors, stuff like that. It's really gonna it's going to be a huge array of different combos that you can use for this. But I'm going to show you what I did and we're going to make some jewelry pieces. I'm not going to make a coaster with it, or do I? I might make one. Yeah, I could make one. I'll just do one on the side and show you, but this is what I kind of experimented with. So I've got the Let's Resin Chameleon Flakes. I'm not going to use them all. I'm just going to use one color just to show you, and we're going to kind of go through some different styles just in that one coaster. So this is just the blue Chameleon Flakes. Watch. I just start brushing. At first, you can't really see it. But the more I work in that powder, it's not going to interfere with the hairspray. It's not going to peel it away. You can brush really hard and you can work that, and it just sticks to the silicone, like I said, not the hairspray. Now if I get you a better angle in a moment, you'll see that? So what we can now do is just experiment, like I said, with different colors, different powders, and kind of see what you could use this to transfer onto the back of a resin cabochon. You've seen me do it on the channel before. It's a really cool technique, and you can also do that with your white silica mat, which you've also seen me do. I'll show you with the gold that I've already done. So I'm just going to play around really with different colors and just see what we get. So next to it, I'm just going to brush on some plum chameleon powder. Again, you can see it working a treat. Imagine the coasters you could do. Imagine doing this on, say, dragon egg style pieces. You know, you could do this potentially on 3D molds as well. You may just have to do it in sections and turn the mold around so that the hairspray doesn't all drip down, if that makes sense. So kind of lay the mold on its side, allow it to dry. It does dry quick, and then flip the mold and spray until you've got the effect. But again, remember, it could mark the molds. You can see it there. It's crazy. Go in with a different coloured nail powder. It's basically an interference powder. I just want to kind of show you the different colours that you can get and achieve. And this one is probably my favourite of all the chameleon flakes from Let's Resin. It's the green. It's got a really nice purple to it in the light. Stunning. So this won't work if you was to make a blank cabochon and then spray the hairspray on the back, because when it comes to brushing, like I mentioned, it's very hard to brush like a powder or flake onto cured resin. I would definitely suggest doing it the way that I'm going to show you. So I'm going to be using the Resin Rockers clear hard type, and I'm just going to fill this heart cavity on my mold all the way to the top. And I've mentioned this, sorry if I'm repeating myself to regular channel viewers, it has to be exact, dead flat with the surface of the mold, so that when it comes to transferring, you're not going to get trapped bubbles. It has to be flat. And out comes the beast. Now, Resin Rockers have actually created a bundle set. So in the bundle set, you get the lamp, you get 250 grams of UV resin, you get a premium Silver Reflections holographic pigment powder. I haven't actually got that one yet. And you get the new cabochon mold that they've just designed with me. So all of that for $219.99. And there's more details over on my community tab page if you want to go and check that out. But again, all links are in the description box below. But that's a really good deal, especially for, honestly, the best UV lamp on the planet. So now we've popped that out, and you'll see that it's flat. If it's got kind of the dip, you know, where it's not flat. You could top it up, but just make sure it's level when you do that. But again, you don't want to trap any bubbles in this next step. So to transfer it to the cabochon, we add a small drop of UV resin to the pattern. Get rid of that bubble. It got rid of itself. We take our heart cabochon and we just rest that on top. And you'll see it start to work its way out. Now, I have mentioned this part before. I'm using a white silicone mat. That allows my light to penetrate through the mat and cure that resin. If you haven't got, and also I have the Beast, a very powerful lamp. If you have, a normal lamp, you can just lift it and position your lamp underneath to cure it from the underside as well. Because what can happen is if your lamp's not powerful enough, you'll go to peel that away and it's not going to be fully cured. So what you can do is just fold over your mat and then blast the light over the top, like so. But if you do it on the coaster, it's much easier to just flip that coaster and cure it from the underside. So we can now just peel that off and you'll see it has peeled all of the design and placed it onto the cabochon. Any excess we can just trim that off. It is thin. I've got a bubble. Oh no. As always, massive shout out to my channel members, anyone who's bought me a coffee or a super thanks, and to all my subs. So there we have our, not finished, but this is where things get even more interesting because you can back this however you want. Now, if you, like I mentioned, if you try and brush another powder or flake over that, it's not going to stick. But what you can do is apply a very, very thin coat of UV resin, flash cure it for say 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and it will be slightly tacky. So you could then brush powders or flakes and it will bond, and then you can back it with a solid color like a black or white, whatever you want. This is where it's going to get really, the combos that you could do with this are really, really interesting. So this is one I made earlier with just a black background, and there is another also with the black background. As you can see, there's a difference with the size of the hairspray blobs, so to speak, but it's almost like an inverted leopard fur effect. So, use your imagination with this, with colors, with different kind of shapes and molds. I mean, this is one that I did that almost looks like the moon surface, and I just used a silver nail powder again with a black background, and it looks like the moon. It's absolutely incredible what you can do with hairspray. Here is one that I did with gold and chameleons. This is where I tried to brush on the gold afterwards. So I brushed the chameleon flakes first and then went over the back of the whole piece with gold. But it is absolutely stunning what you can achieve with this. You could blend different colors. You could go with so many different variations and sizes, just play around with it. And this is another similar moon effect, but what I did with this one to get this piece was actually used my mixing pot. All I did was flipped it over, and you've got this area at the bottom that we can actually use as a mold. It's very thin, perfect for like earrings. It's not sharp around the edges, and it's got a really nice depth, and you can easily make, if you've got two of these, do two at the same time. Just spray on your hairspray and do exactly what I did. And again, with this, it's like the coaster. You can flip it and cure from the underside as well. They're really handy. I'd never thought about using that until the other day, and I was like, why have I never done that before? So you can create some incredible pieces. And this is one that I did with, it's not even related to this one actually, it's like a tree in there, but again, using that, the underside of that pot, that's a hack. So what I'm going to do now off camera, I'm just going to make a coaster because I haven't done it yet and I want to see what it comes out like. I'm just going to be using the collab resin, same way, but it's just with epoxy. I'm just going to spray my hairspray, let it dry. I think I'm going to go with a chameleon flake all over. I'll tell you which color, and then I'm going to fill it with black resin, just some black mica powder mixed in with my epoxy, and just fill it up. And I will see you for the demold tomorrow. Just quickly, I've just cleaned up the silicone mat. It doesn't mark the silicone mat, which is really good. So you could always, if you have a spare white silicone mat, just cut it into sheets so they're easier to handle and flip over. What I'm also going to do is probably just make some pendants. So we've got a coaster and some pendants to check out tomorrow. I thought I'd just quickly show you, just after spraying, they've still got to dry. And there is the coaster. Like I said, it's very similar to the raindrop technique. Okay, we're all cured, and yes, you can see one that was left behind. You know when I said to you, make sure the hair dry is fully dry? The hairspray is fully dry. I didn't look, and it kind of went a bit messy in that big area there. So, and I was running low on resin, so this one is quite thin as well. So I just thought, just leave it. There are quite a few. I'm going to try and rush through them. I'm pretty nervous with this because I don't know how these are going to demold. I don't know what they're going to look like, whether they're going to need top coating. I don't know. Let's just crack on. As always, give the video a thumbs up, drop me a comment. If you haven't subbed, hit that button for me. I just used a mixture. Some of them are just one color chameleon flake, but some I've kind of used two and just blended through. That is crazy. It's almost metallic. It's glossy as well. I can't see the hairspray being a problem. I love that. Again, it's very similar to that raindrop technique. That is stunning. I love it. I feel a little bit more at ease now. Definitely. I think that's the thing though, is that the hairspray is still kind of contained in these areas. Is it going to be a problem? I don't know. I think I need to maybe clean one and see what happens. See, this area here was still quite tacky when I put the powders on, so it stuck to that patch. I just love the really tiny, intricate details that you don't get with the raindrop technique. You can, but you'd be there for ages just adding those tiny droplets of resin to get that. Whereas with this, it's just a quick spray with hairspray. I love that. It's almost like lizard skin. Right. I'm loving this. I really am loving it. Try and race through this because now I want to really see the coaster to see how that's come out. Again, on this one, it was still a little bit tacky. So I'd say give it a good half hour, just to be sure. That was a blend of colours. It's really cool. I think this could be a new trend. Right, last one. This is the really thin one, but I ran out of resin. Again, there, a patch where it was too tacky. It does look metallic. Right, let's move that out of the way. I also mentioned a little bit further back in the video about the layering, adding a thin layer of UV resin to then get the chameleon powders to bond to that layer before adding your black. I did it yesterday and this is the result. This is absolutely stunning. So I did it exactly the same way, gold over the hairspray, bonded the cab to that gold, peeled away, added a very thin layer of clear, semi-cured that, brushed with chameleon flakes, and then backed it with my black. But look at the colours in this, and that was using the green chameleon flakes again. It's like dichroic glass. Absolutely incredible effects. Right, on with the coaster. Please, please, please be as good as the pendants. Let's check the mold. Actually, I can't see. Oh, I can see some tiny, it's very, very difficult to see. Very difficult to see any marks. But I would use old molds, but I would use this one just for this technique again. Right, what do we get? Hello. Wow. That is incredible. The colors, again, that was the green, gives that purple. And it's very flush, it's very flat, and the finish is, on the way to the studio I was thinking, oh, am I going to have to top coat this? Am I going to have to spend another day, another mix of resin and giving that a top coat? Because I was really worried it was going to turn out matte. But that has come out so shiny. That's incredible. Again, imagine the time it would take to do that with the raindrop technique. You'd be there for hours getting all of those intricate details in. Okay, it hasn't got the same depth, but it has got depth. If you look, it's like dragon skin. Right, I'm gonna try on one of the pendants. I don't want to ruin this. I'm gonna try just giving it a wash with some soapy water and seeing how it affects the dried hairspray. And I'm gonna do that on this thin one. So just some warm soapy water. Hoping it doesn't affect it. If anything, it's only gonna wash away the hairspray, leaving more depth to the piece. Surely. I mean, I can't see any visible difference. I think all it is going to do is just give it more depth, because it can only go as far as, you know, below the hairspray to the black epoxy, and it is just hairspray. There's nothing coming off. I can't see any difference whatsoever. There's no kind of residue that's coming off. I think this is a win. This is an absolute win, and an absolute, I'm not going to say the word, brand new technique that is really incredible. Again, imagine like you could get a really cool stone effect with this. If you was to do this with like a marbling, I don't know. I mean, this is just the beginning. Let me know in the comments, what would you do with this? What kind of color combos, effects would you go for? I'm loving it. I really am loving it. I think everybody's going to be doing this one. Right, enough waffling. That's 8 minutes for another demold. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you for the next one. Loving this. Bye for now. Just quickly, I have to add this bit at the end. In my previous video where we tried the epoxy to make the shells, what we found with the epoxy version was that the epoxy had bonded through the hairspray. What I think has happened in that video and in this is that the epoxy has actually kind of merged and sunk into the hairspray, if that makes sense. So the hairspray has absorbed the resin. That makes sense because we couldn't demold the epoxy skull from the epoxy with the hairspray coated on it. If you've seen that video, you'll completely understand what I'm saying, because the epoxy had time to kind of work its way in with the hairspray and bond. So I think that's what's happened with this, is that the epoxy has become one with the hairspray, which means it's not going to affect it in any way. That itself is pretty incredible.